Former Trump administration economic advisor Larry Kudlow is now whining about proposed tax increases for the wealthy to help finance the budget reconciliation bill, which would offer some robust social safety net programs for Americans, which means that Kudlow is the latest installment for When Rich Men Cry.
I care. That's it.
Kudlow had a bit of a moment on Fox Business when he started thinking about the proposed tax increases for the rich. This would impact people who make more than $400,000 a year. It would impact capital gains, which, obviously mostly impacts the rich who are invested in the stock market. Kudlow is the type of person who'd be impacted by it, so he's crying. Let's hear what he had to say.
We are the most progressive tax system among all the developed economies around the world, that according to the OECD. Now, Mr. Biden attacks business. He attacks successful earners, he calls rich people. All he wants is redistribution of income and wealth, not growth, not opportunity, and not prosperity. And he defends this left-wing woke agenda by spreading the big lie about rich people. That's what totalitarian governments do. Biden's arguments are fact-free.
No, your arguments are fact-free. We now live in a society where you have wealthy people who pay literally nothing in taxes because they keep all of their money invested in the stock market. They don't sell the stocks. They qualify for loans, which they then use to finance and bankroll their lifestyles, which is great reporting, by the way, that was done by ProPublica. You have corporations who pay such a low effective tax rate that they get refunds from the federal government after they file their taxes. Amazon is a perfect example of that, an incredibly successful and lucrative business that has made Jeff Bezos a billionaire, but somehow, Amazon gets away with paying nothing in taxes. But Kudlow would have you believe that having working Americans pay more in taxes than the richest people in the country is somehow totalitarianism.
Yeah, so guys, the Republican Party's always been in favor of the rich, and you actually know it. Even if you're a Republican, you know it in your gut. And so this is Kudlow's just a personification of it. And if you go back and read Lewis Powell's memo from 1971, where he explained how corporations can take over the government, one of the things he said was, we need people in media who will be our mouthpieces and who will say that it's corporations and the wealthy that are the victims. And here we are, and we see it every day. And Kudlow's a great example of it. I mean, he worked for Trump. You all know Trump's literally thousands of lies. And then he comes out here and has the temerity to say, Biden is lying and he's attacking poor rich people. They say with no hint of irony. Who do you think runs this country? You think it's the Haitian immigrant that's trying to cross the border? He's not even here yet. He doesn't have a dollar to his name. How would he influence any of the votes and any of the rules that are set in place? Or do you think maybe it's wealthy donors, not all rich people, but wealthy political donors that give to politicians and say, lower my taxes, cut regulations so I can endanger people's lives by not taking safety precautions, being able to dump toxic waste, etc. Of course, it's the wealthy. Look up, don't look down, right? But Kudlow, the minute you do that, goes, they're on to us. Send out Kudlow, give him 3 martinis and send him out to say the poor, wealthy donors in this country. I can't believe Biden is taking their name in vain.
I mean, Kudlow himself is a millionaire who is also a product of Wall Street. So what he's complaining about is something that would, if it passes, impact him and the amount of taxes he pays, right? So he considers it totalitarianism for rich people like himself to pay their fair share in taxes, right? And he also longs for the days when Donald Trump was president, because remember, despite the low polling in support of the tax cuts for the rich, Trump and Republicans passed the tax cuts for the wealthy, which is gonna cost this country $2 trillion over the next decade. But worked out real well for Kudlow. So here's what he had to say about Trump and how much he misses his daddy.
The middle class never had it so good under my former boss, Donald Trump. Now, With an extremely divisive Biden, America's foreign policy decline under Biden, absolute chaos on our southern border under Biden, and a tax and spend policy that is scaring 125 million investors near to death, with all kinds of things happening that no one thought would happen just a few months ago. I will tell you, folks, I kind of yearn for the calm, peaceful, orderly, prosperous, America first, around the globe days of Donald Trump. Just saying.
Yeah, the calm, peaceful days of Donald Trump. I mean, really left the White House with a bang with that, Capitol Hill riot. But obviously he lied. The middle class experienced basically shrinking during the Trump administration. I'll give you those details in a second, Cenk.
Yeah, look, guys, they're now kind of rubbing our nose in how big the lies are. I mean, you could almost see him winking there. I yearn for the calm days of Trump. Did anybody think, I mean, even if you're a right winger, did you think the Trump years were calm? Nobody thought they were calm. He says Biden is extremely divisive. But that one they actually mean, because they think, well, attacking black people and Latinos, that's normal. Saying, hey, maybe white people shouldn't have extra advantages, have an unfair advantage, and maybe we should all be equal like the Constitution says. They're like, why are you being so divisive? And hey, here, let's take a look at capital gains, because that's one of the things he's crying about. Now, this is not about the different classes even. Let's take rich versus rich. Doctors earn a salary for being a doctor. They have to pay near 40%. People who have capital gains, people who work on Wall Street more often, right? They pay about half of that. And now we're saying, hey, maybe they should pay the same rate as the doctors, because the doctor actually had to work all year, a hard job, especially these days, to earn that salary. Whereas the other guy pressed a couple of buttons. Okay, there's no problem, you make money that way, it's an investment, I got it. But why are you paying half the taxes? And that's when Kudlow goes, oh my God, asking us to pay these rich people to pay the same thing as other rich people? And oh my God, the middle class, yuck. I hate those guys. Why are you being so divisive by making us pay the same amount? That doesn't, and to him, that's a genuine question. We're supposed to rob you, and you're being annoying by not letting us rob you.
I mean, I don't understand who that show appeals to. Like a guy slurring his words, wearing a funky looking suit while crying about having to pay a little more in taxes. Now, in reality, during the Trump administration, we experienced the gap between the rich and the poor widen even more rapidly, right? So inequality grew under the Trump administration. And what I'm about to read to you is actually prior to the pandemic, right? Because oftentimes Trump and people who served in his administration would argue, no, he did amazing things for the economy. It's just that COVID tanked the economy in the tail end. Not true. The distance separating America's highest and lowest income brackets grew by almost 9% annually under Trump. That growth is faster than in previous periods. From 1990 to 2015, growth was about 7%, a period that included 3 recessions. And then when you look at the redistributive policies that have become less progressive under the Trump administration, you can understand why he was not helpful to the middle class or working Americans in general. It is now clear that tax cuts sold as a way to stimulate economic activity favored the wealthiest Americans and did not, in fact, stimulate economic activity, did not lead to higher wages and more jobs for Americans. By 2019, housing was unaffordable for workers in 70% of the country. The average family is now far less able to afford homeownership than it was just a few years ago. Almost 30 million people lacked health insurance in 2019. Wow, what a winner. He really longs for the days of the Trump administration where things were calm and tax cuts were, immediately passed in Congress.
So last thing is, Alex, give an answer to the question you asked. Who watches that show? Correct answer is not many. And so Tucker Carlson is smart enough to do a real populist show where he'll say, oh, they're replacing white people. Can you believe it? Oh, I hate the brown people. And right wingers love that kind of talk. They're like, yeah, Tucker's my guy. And Tucker will be savvy enough to actually hit big business because he knows big business is crushing everybody, including the right wing voters. And so they hate their bosses, and Tucker feeds into that. So he will then redirect them to more tax cuts for the rich, more deregulation, but it's at least sophisticated. Larry Kudlow does a crappy show that almost nobody watches, but they still get paid a lot of money for it. Why? Because it's the demographic it's going for is Wall Street goons and corporate politicians and their staffers. So 13 people will watch it, but 7 of them work on Wall Street and 4 of them work on the Hill. And so Lockheed Martin and JP Morgan Chase and all those the drug companies will all go and pay for ads on Larry Kudlow's show because they're trying to reach those 13 corrupt people. And for them, those 13, oh, this is manna from heaven. They love to hear Kudlow talk, slurred or otherwise. They're like, oh my God. Kudlow said, Biden's scaring investors to death, that they might have to pay the same taxes as everyone else. They're scared to death. And the corrupt look at that and go, way to go, Larry, another martini on us. And the advertisers pay for it, and that's how this corrupt system is maintained. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.